When we look at Cristiano Ronaldo today, we see a flawless machine, a man whose biological age defies the laws of nature, an athlete with an obsessive focus on body fat percentage, sleep, diet, and training. We remember the famous gesture at the European Championship press conference when he demonstratively shoved aside bottles of soda, urging everyone to drink plain water. For millions around the world, he is the benchmark of professionalism, elevated to an absolute cult. Yet, behind every great obsession lies an underlying cause. In psychology, this is called overcompensation, when profound emotional pain and the fear of losing control transform into an iron shell of unyielding will. For Cristiano Ronaldo, the foundation of this superhuman discipline was a tragedy that unfolded in September 2005, and the figure of a man he loved unconditionally, but could never save. His father, José Dinis Aveiro. To understand the roots of this drama, one must travel back to the end of the last century, to the Portuguese island of Madeira. The Quinta do Falcão neighborhood in Funchal was a place where poverty was not a metaphor, it was a physical reality. The Aveiro family lived crammed into a tiny house with a leaking tin roof. His mother, Dolores, worked to exhaustion as a cook and cleaner to feed 4 children. His father, José Dinis, was a municipal gardener, but there was always a lingering shadow in his eyes, the nature of which the young Cristiano could not yet comprehend. Dinis was a veteran of the colonial wars in Africa. In the early 1970s, he was drafted into a senseless, brutal conflict in Angola and Mozambique, where young Portuguese soldiers survived for months in the jungle, suffering from malaria, starvation, and the daily terror of death. When the war ended, these psychologically scarred soldiers returned to a country that wanted nothing more than to forget that chapter of history. There was no rehabilitation, no psychological support, only ruined lives and post-traumatic stress disorder. Dinis tried to silence this internal hell the most accessible way he knew, through cheap alcohol in local taverns. Alcoholism became his anesthesia against memories, but it simultaneously turned into a slow poison for the entire family. Yet Dinis was neither cruel nor abusive. He genuinely loved his children, and it was he who first introduced little Cristiano to football. Taking a job as a kitman at the amateur club CF Andorinha, Dinis washed kits and cleaned the dressing rooms. For the 7-year-old Cristiano, this was his first step into the sport, but also a source of agonizing childhood shame. Peers often mocked him, pointing out that his father cleaned up after them and frequently appeared in public intoxicated. That shame did not break the boy. Instead, it ignited a fierce desire to prove to the entire world that he was worth far more. At the age of 12, Cristiano left home for the Sporting CP Academy in Lisbon. It was a period of painful loneliness. A boy with a heavy provincial accent cried every night in his dormitory room. But it was precisely then that his defense mechanism took shape. Total insulation from weakness. He trained late at night in the gym, strapped weights to his ankles, and honed his dribbling until his feet blistered and bled. He swore an oath to pull his family out of poverty and save his father. However, it is impossible to rescue a person from addiction against their own will, no matter how much money you make. When Ronaldo secured a sensational transfer to Manchester United at the age of 18 and multi-million-pound contracts flooded in, his immediate thought was to save his father through medical care. Cristiano paid for Europe's top doctors, placed his father in elite clinics across England and Portugal, and begged him to stop drinking, promising him the world at his feet. But liver cirrhosis and kidney failure had already reached their terminal stages, and the psychological grip of alcohol proved stronger than promises and hope. Dinis simply did not know how to live any other way. The culmination of this tragedy arrived in early September 2005. The 20-year-old Cristiano was on duty with Manchester United when word came that his father's condition in a London hospital had turned critical. At that moment, Sir Alex Ferguson played a pivotal role in the young Portuguese player's life. The manager showed a depth of humanity that forged an unbreakable bond between them. Ferguson approached Cristiano and told him that the club meant nothing in the face of family grief, excusing him from crucial matches and sending him straight to London. Ronaldo spent those final hours by his dying father's bedside, holding his hand and witnessing what alcohol had reduced a once strong man to. On September 6, 2005, José Dinis Aveiro passed away at the age of 52. For the young footballer, it was a devastating blow, but his response permanently defined his character. Just days after the funeral, Portugal faced a vital World Cup qualifier against Russia. Head coach Luis Felipe Scolari offered to let Ronaldo sit out, but he refused outright. He took the pitch in the starting lineup wearing a black armband, playing with ferocious intensity and dedicating every second of the match to the memory of his late father. That was the moment a seismic shift occurred in Cristiano's mind. He had witnessed firsthand where the loss of self-control leads. Alcohol had taken his father, and soon after, it brought his older brother Hugo to the brink of ruin, whom Cristiano literally pulled out of rehab centers after making a famous pact. His brother would overcome addiction, and Cristiano would win La Décima, the 10th Champions League title for Real Madrid. Ronaldo realized that the only way to conquer chaos and self-destruction was to establish absolute, near-tyrannical control over his own life, body, and mind. From that day forward, abstaining from alcohol became more than a healthy habit. It became a sacred vow and a psychological boundary. He strictly refuses to drink alcohol, even in moments of monumental triumph. While the rest of the team drenches themselves in champagne after Champions League victories, Cristiano holds a bottle of water. In his worldview, a glass of wine is not a way to unwind. It is a trigger of weakness, the very enemy that destroyed his family. His obsessive discipline is a direct consequence of that childhood trauma. A strict sleep schedule, hours of recovery routines, ice baths in the middle of the night, a rigid diet free of sugar and empty calories. None of this is merely about staying at the pinnacle of football. It is a relentless internal war against the fear of losing control. By governing every muscle, every meal, and every minute of his day, he subconsciously proves to himself and the world that he will not share his father's fate, that he is stronger than circumstance, genetics, and the environment he came from. The most poignant illustration of this unhealed wound came during Ronaldo's 2019 interview with journalist Piers Morgan. During the conversation, Cristiano was shown rare archival footage. His father standing on the doorstep of their Madeira home shortly before his death, speaking with pride about his son and predicting his greatness. Watching the clip, Ronaldo, a man accustomed to projecting the image of an untouchable, unflinching superhero, broke down in tears. He buried his face in his hands and wept openly on camera. He admitted that the pain would never leave him because his father never lived to see his greatness. Dinis never saw the 5 Ballon d'Or awards, the 5 Champions League titles, or the Euro 2016 triumph with Portugal. He passed away when Cristiano was still just a promising talent, and they never had the chance to speak as 2 mature, grown men. Cristiano Ronaldo's story is far more than a fairy tale about a poor boy who became a billionaire and a sporting legend. It is a profound psychological narrative of how a person takes the greatest pain of their childhood, the tragedy of loss, and the terror of helplessness, and forges them into unbreakable armor. His father's death from alcoholism could have broken him, as it does millions around the world, perpetuating a vicious cycle of generational trauma. But Ronaldo broke that cycle. He transformed the memory of his father into an eternal fuel for self-mastery, building a legacy anchored in absolute mental clarity, iron discipline, and unwavering respect for his body and his calling.